Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Everson here, going to do your briefing for May 2nd, 2024. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start progressing through the slides. All right, so situation overview. Got high rain chances today and tomorrow. If you looked at radar anytime lately, you've seen a bunch of showers and storms to the west. We'll see an image of that in just a minute. Chances of severe and flooding potential. It's not zero, but it's also not very high, and it's mainly for areas like the western portions of our forecast area. Beyond today and tomorrow, could be some isolated storms over the weekend, but you'll kind of start seeing those rain chances steadily fall off after tomorrow. And then next week, we're looking at pretty warm temperatures. We've got one of the slides I think has some actual forecast highs, and getting up in there to some lower, maybe lower 90s, definitely some upper 80s. So it's gonna start feeling like summertime if it hasn't yet too. All right, next slide. So current radar, been getting a lot of rainfall out to the west. Last I looked from Lake Charles radar, they measured 4, 5, 6 inches of rain right there on the Texas-Louisiana border. I mean, good thing for us is that even as this activity tries to move east, we've noticed that they just haven't been able to do so very much. And if they do, it's just light rain. But at some point, some of that convection will start to hedge over towards southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. Could be a few stronger storms with some gusty winds, but probably not much further than I-55, because once it gets further east than that, as far as timing goes, sun's going to be down, so the storms should really start to lose their luster. As you look at the next slide, in terms of the actual risk of severe weather, we're at that margin of that level 1 out of 5. So pretty low risk. If it does happen, shouldn't be a big impact. As far as timing goes, so it's 2 o'clock now, maybe in a couple hours, starting to hedge in towards like the Atchafalaya Basin and moving towards Baton Rouge and Hammond, maybe sneak in New Orleans. But as I mentioned, as it gets to the edge of that darker to lighter green, you're really going to start noticing the convection weaken as it gets further east. And kind of the same for the excessive rainfall outlook. So 1 to 2 inches of rain, can you get flash flooding out of that? It's pretty hard. It had to be, I think it's going to be a very specific situation where like a very flood prone area, flood prone underpasses, things like that. And it would have to be one storm that happened to produce close to 2 inches in an hour. Outside of that, I mean, chances are pretty low to see any flash flooding, but the threat's out there, so I want to go ahead and show you all that. As far as how much rainfall, at least today and tomorrow, those bluish colors get up towards an inch or so. Actually, I apologize, I didn't correct the legend on the left-hand side. So anything that's in that bluish color is barely an inch of rainfall, like the darker blue. So the lighter blue is like 1.25 inches. So it's not a lot of rainfall, even the next couple days. Kind of going beyond that, looking at over the weekend, as I mentioned, those rain chances really coming down quite a bit. You're looking at 10-20%, and then I don't know, we have 10%. So if it's 5 or 10%, you're not gonna actually see it in the forecast coming out from us. So almost no chance of rain once you get beyond Saturday and going into the middle of next week. And this next graphic really kind of highlights that. It's going to be those kind of longer range precipitation temperature outlooks. As I mentioned in that first slide, could be getting near record temperatures. So got to remember, doesn't mean extremely hot, but for early May, we typically don't get into the mid upper 90s. So those low 90s, that's right there around record highs for this time of year. And heat indices, I looked at that before I walked in here. It's probably like mid 90s on the hottest, at least I think that's Wednesday I was looking at specifically. Tuesday, low 90s for heat index values, and then mid 90s for Wednesday. And while that's not particularly high when you look at midsummer, but for early season, people just haven't acclimated to the heat yet. So you may start to notice some people having some, not really issues, but just something to be aware of, that those temperatures could be warming up pretty well midweek next week, and possibly going beyond that. That's getting into the 8-10 day range, which is kind of what they're showing here. So near normal rainfall and above normal temperatures is what we got coming. And that's all I've got. So You stand by a second. I'm gonna go ahead and oops, apologize. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everyone. And you can unmute yourself if you have any questions for me. All right, nothing hurt. I hope y'all have a good weekend and going into next week. Take care.
Thanks a million.
Absolutely.